2. Good morning. What was the magic in Martin Luther King? Was it his philosophical and theological knowledge? Was it his extended family, where on both sides there was a tradition of activism and social justice? Was it his chosen profession, pastoral ministry, and his education? He had a PhD in systematic theology, which, of course, both required in his tradition, African-American tradition, a greater service to your community. Was it his position or place in society, since he came from a middle-class family? What was the magic in Martin Luther King? It was all of these things, of course, that prepared him to be what he was for us. A great example of a life of sacrifice and service. But there is one more thing: his courage, his faith, his hope. He was willing to look at the ultimate fear, the fear of suffering and the fear of death. The thing that holds us back, the thing that allows us to accept a particular standard that is not up to our own fear. The thing that holds us back and allows us to be in relationships perhaps that we need to say goodbye to. He felt this fear and pressed on toward the mark anyway. The fear of losing his family, the fear of being killed, the fear of not being believed or listened to. But ultimately, this sermon is not about death and suffering, but it is about transcending fear. It is a sermon about moving from fear to courage. It is a sermon about how we have to feel the fear and do it anyway. This message today is about the transformation that comes after that death moment. And as I write this sermon, and now I'm recording it for you, I can look over at my ceiling. You might actually be able to hear my ceiling. There's a water bucket, and water is dripping into this bucket and has for 2 days. So yes, we have sprung a leak. But I'm trying to reframe it and say that we are experiencing some sort of transformation, because water is an ancient symbol of rebirth. So I feel especially important today and fortunate for these drops coming down. Today I'm able to take these drops and turn it into a sermon. Reframing is important. We can choose how and what we give our power to, but that's a digression. Something happened to our brother Martin. He heard a message that he was not forsaken, that he was not alone, to feel the fear and do it anyway, as I said. And something happened to him. It was an awakening experience known as his kitchen call. And what I want to do real quick is play it for you. It's about 5 minutes, but just listen. Listen to the passion, listen to the conviction, listen to the transformation.
I never will forget one night very late. It was around midnight. And you can have some strange experiences at midnight. The telephone started ringing and I picked it up. On the other end was an ugly voice. That voice said to me in substance, "Nigger, we are tired of you and your mess now. And if you aren't out of this town in 3 days, we're gonna blow your brains out and blow up your house." I'd heard these things before, but for some reason that night it got to me. I turned over and I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered. Then I got up and went back to the kitchen and I started warming some coffee, thinking that coffee would give me a little relief. Then I started thinking about many things. I pulled back on the theology and philosophy that I had just studied in the universities, trying to give philosophical and theological reasons for the existence and the reality of sin and evil. But the answer didn't quite come there. I sat there and thought about a beautiful little daughter who had just been born about a month earlier. We have 4 children now, but we only had 1 then. She was the darling of my life. I'd come in night after night and see that little gentle smile. And I sat at that table thinking about that little girl and thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from any minute. And I started thinking about a dedicated, devoted, and loyal wife who was over there asleep. She could be taken from me, or I could be taken from her. And I got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer. I was weak. Something said to me, you can't call on Daddy now. He's up in Atlanta 175 miles away. You can't even call on Mama now. You got to call on that something and that person that your daddy used to tell you about. That power that can make a way out of no way. I discovered then that religion had to become real to me, and I had to know God for myself. And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I never will forget it. Oh, yes, I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. But, Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now. I'm faltering. I'm losing my courage. I can't let the people see me like this, because if they see me weak and losing my courage, they will begin to get weak. It seemed at that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even unto the end of the world.
We all have those vulnerable moments. And I think about this video, it just moves me deeply. I'm witnessing the growth of someone's soul. How little ML became king. How Michael Luther became Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's beautiful. And yes, scary. But he heard that inner voice speaking to him, and he trusted it. It was a voice he would depend on in his ministry. Selma, Montgomery, Detroit, Chicago, Birmingham, Alabama, when he was locked behind bars. Some of us don't trust that still small voice. We choose fear far more often. Daring greatly is your personal quest toward being your best self. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I get it. But when we hide behind our fears, it is particularly why we have the world that we have today. The primary force in this world that is used to subdue and control is fear. If we conquer fear, we conquer life. Adversity is a teacher. And that's why it gets so much of our attention. It is a universal call for us to move from fear to courage. And sometimes we aren't ready. The path is just too scary. But daring greatly is about vulnerability. And vulnerability is not weakness, but strength. In contracting ourselves, we actually open up ourselves for expansion. What this means is you end up letting go of all that egotistical stuff, and you just surrender and say, here I am, use me, even me. You know, today I'm scared. And somehow the mystery, life, opens up. It is magical when it is found in life. But sometimes we have to flip the script, change the perspective to see it. And it takes an enormous amount of courage and some hope and some faith. But as it is written, faith can move mountains. When we are at the precipice of dying to or for something, in the middle of a transformation, as we prepare yet for another rebirthing process, when we get doused by the water, we have to learn to swim or float or tread, and it can be terrifying. Facing demons is scary. But like the old stories go, we have to look them straight in the eye or sit with all those crazy thoughts and just let it pass. And then begin again in courage, hope, and love. For every time you make peace with your dying ego, you realize there is more to life than you realized. When you move beyond fear, you realize there's more to living. And for me, happiness is really about your ability to look at life, to see the mess, and to still see the mystery, the sublime, the beauty. While there is terror and fear and lawlessness, lies and ignorance, deception, there is also at the same time community, love, integrity, truth, wisdom, accountability, because it exists in you and in this community. We live in a nation and world that feels upside down. Change is happening fast, and many are not sure how to make sense of it all. And that's why you know that we're living in extraordinary times, exciting and excruciating times, but I remain hopeful. Why? Because micro, macro, I look at my own life and all of the personal stuff that I've had to go through. And I look at it and I realize it's led to my own evolution and transformation. And so I look at the macro now, our society, which is having this identity crisis. And I just sort of know that it is inevitable, that we're not going backwards. Oh no, that we're going forward to some sort of new paradigm. And that's why there's so much uncertainty today. In Dr. King's time, there was also a major shift happening inside and outside. Things got violent and turbulent and messy. We will have messy times in our lives, but don't let this take your joy, your hope, and your courage away from you. The thing that will move society forward to that more perfect union is our collective hope for better days. And as long as that dream lives in our collective consciousness as humans, it will live. It will persevere. Beloved community can still be possible. Or look at it this way. We choose to have faith in ourselves or our country or our world. When we choose that, we add to the trillions of thoughts and actions that have the same intent. And in those moments, we build up the possibility for that to be manifest in due season. Martin Luther King's magic was his big heart. It was infectious. His powerful words vibrated. Why? Because King saw himself in others. He knew that we were all interconnected and interrelated in a gigantic web of life. King knew that being violent is just an outward expression of how violent we are to and with ourselves. He knew that society was just a big projected dream of clashing and colliding realities of the masses. And the ugliness and the beauty that we see is a micro projection of what is on the inside of us. As the saying goes on the walls of the ancient mystery school, as above, so below, as within, so without. And I apply that quote to the totality of my understanding in life. And part of understanding life means that I trust that inner voice like Dr. King did. And some say, well, you know, he got assassinated, John. Yes, he was killed. But his love lives on. King did not die in vain, nor did he die that day in Memphis, nor did he die because some folk decided that they wanted to go and be a mob at our Capitol. His body left the material, but his message is eternal. His love consciousness joined with all the other sages and people of love to add to those eternal energies that regenerate that love back into the world. Death is life, life is death, the eternal dance, progress to regress. What goes up must come down. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. We know our greatest joys because of our lowest moments. And what you choose to see is what you will see. Your perception is your reality. There is ugliness in this world. I'm not saying there isn't. There's a lot of it. But we are under an illusion that we are far away from love, far away from beloved community. But there is love inside of you, and that is beloved community. Too many of us are giving our power away to the evils in this world, and we need to claim back our power. We give it away by obsessing over them. We take them back by obsessing on what is good and whole and what will bring us together. Viktor Frankl knew this secret truth, and he wrote about it in 1946, Mankind's Search for Meaning. He, of all people, had the audacity to have hope while living in a Nazi death camp. Go read that book again. What I'm saying today is not new. It's time tested. The death of fear and ego is the true beginning of your life. And that's what Jesus meant, that you must be born again to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Your inner voice, your gut, your intuition will not forsake you, even when you think it has. The Milky Way galaxy. That still small voice, when it's not fear-based, guides us to the larger picture. That we are one speck among trillions of specks, trying to find our place, trying to find our harmony in the universe. And if we listen to that inner voice, it can give us a kind of peace and contentment. If we listen to that God or no God of your understanding, call it whatever you like, it will come and aid you as it did Reverend Dr. King. Call on it when you're afraid. Go inside yourself to figure out what's going on when you're really down. Go there sometimes you say, I have no more words to say. Go there. Go there because that place, your big heart, is connected to the all, cosmos. And to me, it is fundamentally good. The thing I love about African American culture, my culture, is that we are a resilient people. Most of us are here in this country because someone survived a slave ship or sugar or cotton plantation. I am the product, the rebirth reality of mentally strong people, and I'm proud of that. And spiritually strong people. Their faith carried them through, and the music in this service, I hope, is giving you those vibes to make you feel what they felt. They could not give up, that there was more love somewhere. You may not be Black, but you should be proud of your culture too. You might be Jewish or Irish or Polish or Italian. Every culture that survives today has proven itself to be resilient. But on this special MLK Sunday, I just want to give thanks to James Weldon Johnson, who listened to his inner voice, even in his bigoted time, when he said, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. I give thanks for Harriet Tubman, who helped hundreds wade in the water as they were rebirthing from slavery to freedom. I give thanks to Reverend Thomas Dorsey, who in the 1930s, when all was depressed, could still write the words, precious Lord, I am tired, I am weak, I am worn, but through the storms and through the night, I will trust you to lead me to that inner light. Thank you, Thomas. And that was Dr. King's favorite hymn, sung at his funeral. There's so many others to choose from. So much courage and love to look toward. And through their sheer will, they carried scores of downtrodden people to freedom. Remember their courage today. All who died for the sake of freedom and justice so you could have this moment of human awareness. We stand on their shoulders. And that is why, more than anything else, we must keep believing, and will it to be so. Please remember their sacrifice today when you're tired or melancholy due to this pandemic. When you're restless, remember those thousands of people, boys, men, women, locked in 6x9 by 12-foot cells, Black men for petty crimes and trumped up charges. Remember them on your difficult days. We suffer with and for them on those days so that we can remember their yearning, their desperation, their cries for freedom too. Remember your ancestors and be of good courage when you're hurting. That they died for you, that they went without and traversed many lands to be here. Remember them. When you think about the 400,000 or more who have died now from COVID-19. And some of you are healthy, many of you, most of you are healthy and safe and thriving. Remember the ancestors, remember their sacrifice and give thanks. Remember and think about the good that is manifested in the midst of all this bad. Remember that even though we have over 900 hate groups in this country, says the Southern Poverty Law Center, that there are many, many more love groups like this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Annapolis. God, good, is always happening, whether there is bad or evil occurring. So don't forget to send some love to the global consciousness through your thoughts, words, and deeds. As you stew about the state of this country, also remember that the words that we think can vibrate harmony or disharmony. This, my friends, is one way that we can dare greatly in the face of what looks like daunting odds. I don't think it's as bad as we think. It's bad, but I don't think it's as bad as we think. The world is moving forward. Something new is evolving. We will always face the tug of war in life. If we don't learn to appreciate the moments, then what is left for us in this life? I think Viktor Frankl figured that out. And when we look at fear and shame and can face those demons with courage and say, I will keep on keeping on anyway, that I am loved, that I am not forgotten, then you begin to live. And that's what happened to Dr. King in his kitchen call. He began to live by facing his fears. Thank you, Brother Martin, for your willingness to see the good in people. Thank you for believing in us when we don't believe in ourselves. Thank you for your tenacity. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your selflessness. Thank you for your love. Amen.
We've come to the place in our service where we share our plate. This is a love offering. You see the word benevolence has the word love in it. It's spelled backwards, but we're very forward with it. In our church, periodically, we have to help our own members with emergency response. Sometimes we need each other to talk. Sometimes we need each other to listen. And sometimes we need each other just for a little bit of money. So be generous in giving money to our benevolence offering. There are 3 different ways to give that. One is through your current pledge commitments. One is through friend donation. That is, if you're new here, you can do an ID contribution. Or through Share the Plate for the emergency fund. Each one of those has a Q code that you can use, or you can text by texting to 73256 to UUCA. And you can look in the chat to see those directions again. Give generously. This is to help one another in our own times of need.
And cut.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Oh, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. hears, and the night draws near, and the day is past and gone. At the riverside, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
I certainly hope you've enjoyed the service today for our annual MLK service. Thank you all for being here this morning. We have one more song, Peace Like a River, and then we'll extinguish our chalice, and then we can hang around for coffee and conversation. Thanks for coming this morning. Remember to be courageous and vulnerable, and always keep the faith. Take care.
Let us all be courageous, understanding how courageous Martin Luther King Jr. was. Let us work harder on loving one another, put our fears away, and talk authentically with each other as often as we can. The light of the flame is extinguished, but let it blaze on in our hearts and share that light with one another. Please unmute yourself now and rejoice in our fellowship by greeting one another.